Right now, the Fed is set to decide on interest rates this week, and it's facing mounting pressure from the president. What does it mean for you and I? Plus, are you hearing the headlines about plane accidents and worried or a little bit nervous about flying? We're going to let you know how to overcome that anxiety. And a city in metro Atlanta is introducing a new way to elevate people facing homelessness and unemployment. This is The Take. Let's get it. Hello and welcome. I'm Chesley McNeil, and this is The Take, where we go above and beyond the headlines and we look at the why and how stories are impacting you and your community. Trying to go above those headlines, folks. We invite the experts in to share their take and give us what they know about those stories as well. And we try to have just a little bit of fun as well. Let's get to our top story today. Governor Brian Kemp says he does not plan to run for a U.S. Senate seat next year. He ended a months-long waiting game yesterday on X, saying in part, "I have decided that being on the ballot next year is not the right decision for me and my family. And this means another Republican will have to take on Democratic Jon Ossoff in 2026. We asked the political analysts, what does this look like?
This is going to be a very large campaign, and billions of dollars could be spent on it, this is the top targeted race in the United States. I think anyone running now needs to come up with the singular issue, the main reason why they should replace Ossoff.
Jon Ossoff has to run as though he is not an incumbent, and he's got to run with an eye towards recognizing that the fundamentals of the state still privilege Republicans over Democrats.
As for who could enter the race, well, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, and Congressman Buddy Carter are on the long list of possibilities. Our other top story this morning, the Federal Reserve has its policy committee meeting tomorrow, and most economists are expecting interest rates to hold steady. That's despite the growing pressure from President Donald Trump to lower the rate. And after a better than expected April jobs report. Joining me now to talk about it is financial analyst Stephen Cates with Bankrate. Welcome to the show, Stephen.
Thank you.
All right. Why do you think most people think the Feds will hold the rate steady?
Well, the Fed has telegraphed for months now the idea that inflation is the larger fight, and they're certainly focused on that. So, expectations are that they're going to hold at the 4.25 to 4.5 range, and the futures market is predicting just a 3% chance that they would cut.
What's the outlook on inflation right now?
Well, we're really waiting and seeing. I think this upcoming CPI report, which will come out next week, is going to be really, really informative. I think the expectations are that prices will rise due to some of the tariff-induced impacts, but how much and at what rate and what's going to be impacted is going to be a little bit difficult to predict.
President's made his comments, right? You don't think that will have any influence on lowering rates at all? I mean, I know most are saying it will hold steady, but do you think he would have any influence on that?
I don't think that that's going to have any impact at this point. I think that where the Fed is going to move, isn't going to be influenced by the president. And the president has come out and said that he has no intention of firing Chairman Powell. I think that although, there were a bit of a war of words, ultimately it's not going to change the way that the business is done.
I was going to ask you that because it seems like or let me ask you this, is there any way of maneuvering around what could take place? Is there anything he could do to kind of force it down?
Well, I think that, the president can come out and give his opinion. He certainly has claimed that he can have an opinion and certainly has every right to say what he wants to say, whether it's in the news media or on Truth Social. But the Federal Reserve is maintaining their independence and will do so, consistently. I don't think that they're going to change the way that they plan to update interest rates now or at any point in the future.
Gotcha. Do you? You're saying at any point in the future, so you don't think they'll ever come back?
I don't think that they're going to change that. I don't think that they're going to be receptive to pressure from the president at any point in the future.
I got you.
But I do think that there is a situation where they will either cut in June or July.
Okay. So what would be in the future, if you look ahead to the future, is there a situation where they could begin to come down?
Yes, I think that, there's, although there's less of an expectation that they'll cut in June, there's still about a 30% chance in terms of the odds. And July is the most likely situation at this point. The upcoming CPI report and the subsequent PCE report, the those are going to be what really is going to be the Fed's best data point to decide whether this is going to be quickly rising inflation or only moderately rising inflation. I think the expectation is that businesses will pass on the price increases to consumers, but we just don't know how rapidly that is going to rise.
And you said
it's not going to be like 2022, but it is going to happen.
And you said July is when we would know that? Is that what
I think that July is the likely expectation of when the Fed will make their first cut.
Gotcha.
It could be June if things are either getting very poor in the labor market. So if things start to really deteriorate quickly, then the Fed may change their tack and start to make a change in June. But I think it's looking like July, given the resilience of the labor market and given just the wait and see expectations on inflation.
Gotcha. All right, last question for you, Stephen. What should consumers do? What should we do in the meantime?
Well, consumers need to be aware that prices are very likely to start to rise a little bit quicker. They're going to see borrowing rates stay exactly where they are. So people who are looking to buy a home, buy a car, make home renovations, they should be aware that lending rates are really not going to change. Now, the best time to buy something is when you can afford it. If you need to go into debt, or if you are worried about your credit card debt, those are things that you need to be sort of diligent about. And padding your emergency fund, having a little bit of extra savings on the side is the best way to mitigate future changes in higher expenses.
Gotcha. Stephen Cates, appreciate you joining us, and thanks for the insight this morning.
My pleasure.
All right, have a great day. All right, collections have started again for those who have defaulted on their student loans. That means the federal government can seize your tax refund checks and your Social Security, retirement, and disability benefits. This can also impact your credit score. Some could see scores fall as much as 170 points. We spoke with an expert, and they shared the steps that you can take to get your loan in good standing.
The best thing would be to really sort of take a close look at your budget, determine what you can afford to pay, and then reach out to your loan servicers, look at studentaid.gov for your options, reach out to that debt resolution group. If you are a borrower in default and you got an email notification, and find out what your options are.
All right, according to the Department of Education, around 42 million Americans have federal student loans, and roughly 5.3 million are in default. Wow. All right, let's take a look at your 7-day outlook for today. And today is the best day of the week, weather-wise, just my opinion, folks. We're looking at sunshine for today. We will get some clouds in here. In fact, we're trying to get some clouds out of here right now as we speak. We'll get much of the afternoon under mostly sunny skies, and then more clouds will come back a little bit later. I'm thinking after 6 or 7 o'clock. 79 degrees will be the afternoon high temperature, and then comes the rain. Yeah, we'll have scattered showers around on Wednesday, and we'll hold on to it for the rest of the week and through the upcoming weekend. Hey, don't go anywhere. We're back right after this. All right, welcome back to the show. Today, President Donald Trump is hosting Canada's Prime Minister. He's a key player in the administration's tariff tug-of-war. The president also threatening to put steep tariffs on movies made outside the United States. Joining me now is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr, who has been covering politics for years now. And Alice, President Trump meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister today, Mark Carney, to what could be, or what he thinks at least, is a deal, to make a deal on tariffs. How is the Prime Minister responding, or has he responded as of yet?
So we've seen a tweet from, or an X post from Prime Minister Mark Carney upon his arrival yesterday in D.C., where he just said that he believes that Canada and the United States are both stronger together, and that work begins right now. So he's coming into this saying that he wants to work alongside President Trump and to strengthen these relationships. But it does come at a time of historic tension between Canada and the United States, of course, the closest of allies for a very, very, very long time. But these tariffs that President Trump has imposed on Canada, particularly Canadian steel, aluminum, a variety of products, and then the back and forth that's touched off, has really changed the dynamic. And Mark Carney actually rocketed to victory really on the backs of campaigning off of standing up to President Trump, and also referencing the frequent comments that the president has made about wanting Canada to become the 51st state. So for Mark Carney, he comes into this wanting to hold true to his campaign promises to kind of talk tough with President Trump, but also in that message that we saw from him yesterday, and certainly in understanding the best way to approach President Trump when you're trying to come to some kind of agreement. I think he is going to want to, sort of have open arms and kind of lower the temperature today.
Gotcha. Something that's a big deal for us right here in Georgia is the film industry. They call us the Hollywood of the South, and the president made an announcement on tariffs yesterday that could have a big impact on the film industry. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so again, his preferred tool for kind of making adjustments in a variety of policy ways is tariffs. And he made this proposal. The White House followed up to say that this is not finalized, but a proposal to slap tariffs onto movies that are made outside the United States. And as you noted, Georgia is one of the states that has managed to keep production here in the U.S. Hollywood has been losing much of its production to foreign countries that are using a lot of financial incentives. Canada, the UK have been hosting a lot of production of American-made movies. And so President Trump said he wants to change that, in keeping with wanting to have, everything really based here in the U.S. He said he wants to think about the idea of tariffs. But there are many in the industry that fear that this could hurt an industry that has been battered by COVID, by strikes, and then recently by wildfires. And many, including the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, are saying that, there are financial incentives that other countries are using to lure in production, and that's what would be more helpful here, using federal tax incentives to encourage more U.S. production of American-made movies is something that might be a better pathway to that. But we know that Jon Voight, the actor, had met with President Trump prior to this and had a little bit of a say in this idea. Again, not finalized, and yet to see where it goes.
Gotcha. We'll be watching that very, very closely here, as that is a big part of our economy. Alice, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. All right, the summer travel season kicks off at the end of the month, and so far this year there's been a lot of headlines about mid-air accidents and scary situations related to flying. Tell me about it, right? In January, the American Airlines jet and a military helicopter collided over the Potomac River. Since that deadly incident, there has been several high-profile incidents in the air, like the Delta plane crash that landed upside down on a runway in Toronto. Remember that? And just last month, a Delta flight from Orlando to Atlanta caught fire before taking off, forcing everyone on board to evacuate. And you see that fire right there. This all has a lot of people nervous about boarding flights. Here to talk about it is Dr. German Reyes, a psychiatrist with WellStar. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
All right. I reluctantly got on a plane this weekend, right? And so I know a lot of people probably are like me. The Cleveland Clinic says that a fear of flying affects 25 million Americans. It's pretty common. Was that the case before all this stuff started happening?
That was the case before all this started happening. And something I always mention to patients who have that fear, or who have anxiety in general, is to always make sure that they're basing their beliefs in fact. So we have had a lot of high-profile incidents, like you mentioned, with air travel recently. But I was looking at the data just the other day, and in the first quarter of 2024, we actually had 173 some odd incidences, whereas in the 2025, we had 99. That's a significant drop in incidents. Mm-hmm. The difference really has been the high-profile cases that have been going on. So I always tell patients, let's look at the facts, because when we are dealing with anxiety, what's happening? We're dealing with the unknown. So if we can find some things that we can ground in fact, it starts to feel better. If we can focus on what's in our control, travel becomes a little bit easier. So
we almost have to kind of promote stories of success flights, right? More so than these high-profile flights. What really gets into people's heads when they hear these stories?
Absolutely. When you hear these stories, it can be very frightening. And to your point about promoting stories of success, I tell people, well, have you flown before? And, many people, even with flying anxiety, have flown before. And I'm like, okay, what went right with that flight? What was going on? Hang on to that, right? Think about that. And then think about everything that made it easier to travel that day and repeat those efforts. So
what are ways people can manage this? Are we going to see an uptick what are the comfort pets that fly?
You may see an uptick in emotional support animals. I think the best way to start really managing it is by preparing for the flight, preparing for the travel. Anytime we go on a trip, preparation is the best thing you can do, because if you can feel a little bit of control in what's going on, then it becomes a little bit easier. So get to the airport earlier, right? Because invariably we've all had that experience where they change the terminal on us, or there's been something going on and the flight's delayed. Get there earlier so that you have time, you can relax, you can kind of focus. Breathing exercises are a phenomenal way for a person to really get, if they start to feeling panic, under control. Worst case scenario, if a person really does have that true form of panic, they can talk to a psychiatrist like myself or their family care physician, and they can take a medicine with them to help really tamp down that anxiety and maybe help them actually just sleep through the flight rather than sitting there white knuckling it in terror, right?
That's absolutely right, and that's probably one of the first things I would do. Is there anything that we should not do if we're nervous about flying?
I would avoid consuming any other illicit substances or alcohol, things that would make you disinhibited and could actually trigger an anxiety attack. I would try not to ever jump to conclusions and not focus on what's not fact-based. Don't focus on the negative. Try to stay focused on the positive and in the here and now, because again, with anxiety, you want to stay grounded in the moment. You don't want to get ahead of yourself. Most often anxiety is coming about from the future, right? Like, all these unknowns. Well, I know what's going on right now. I know what shoes I have on right now. I know what tie I have on right now. So I'm going to focus on what's grounded in here and present.
There you go. I understand that totally. You start to go up a little bit. You're feeling good. Okay, this is great. And then you hit that first bump. And it's like, wait a minute, and so.
Yeah, we start white knuckling it right there.
So I was focused on my shoes, focused on my tie. Everything's good. We're doing good. Thank you, Dr. Reyes. Really appreciate that, man. Some good insight for us.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys. Have a great morning, and I hope everybody has a lovely traveling season.
All right, thanks so much. All right, plenty more stories for you right after the break, folks. This is The Take on 11Alive Plus. We're back right after this. All right, welcome back to the show. The city of Forest Park is launching a new program that looks to empower people facing homelessness and unemployment. It's called Elevate. Joining me here to talk more about it on the show is City Manager Ricky Clark Jr. Mr. Clark, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Glad to be with you this morning.
And we're glad to have you, man. Talk to me about Elevate, this program. How does it work?
Absolutely. It was built off the notion that poverty is expensive, compassion is cost effective. My team and I attended a meeting in what we learned was the only homeless shelter in Clayton County with 150 beds. And with the 150 beds, there were so many needs from the organization that as I left there with some of our senior staff members, it was a call to action. What can we really do as a local government to, in fact, stop this trend of our unhoused population? And so April 18th, with partners at Atlanta Technical College, Clayton State University, Clayton County Public Schools, as well as the Calvary Refuge Center, we launched Officially Elevate, a pioneering program designed to empower individuals facing homelessness, unemployment, and underemployment.
So it's not just the unhoused piece of it, it's also unemployment as well, right?
Absolutely. Well, underemployed.
Underemployed. All right, talk to me about that. Is that a need in the area? You're seeing that as a big need in the area?
Absolutely. So in our backyard, just last year, April of last year, we celebrated Fort Gillum Logistics Center as the fastest, largest rapid redevelopment of a decommissioned military base in the world, with over a $1 billion impact in this community. And so we decided that we're going to make certain that we take care of those individuals who have called Forest Park home for a number of years and ensure that they have the proper skill sets to attract some of these local jobs that are here. Not just focusing on the fact that we have these big businesses, but focusing on how do we ensure that our individuals within this community have the proper skill sets to obtain some of these jobs.
What's some of the services that the city is going to provide for these folks?
So absolutely, it's wraparound services from workforce empowerment to advanced skill training, career placement and growth, comprehensive community support. It's a wraparound service. We also recognize through our partnership with the Atlanta Center for Self-Sufficiency that some of these individuals are going to have tailored needs, whether it's mental crises, whether it's the needs for soft skills, the need for financial literacy. So really, we are looking to ensure that each individual that comes into this program office to participate in this first inaugural cohort of Elevate gets the services that they need to be able to attract some of these quality jobs within this community.
Gotcha. You just opened up an office, right, off of Forest Parkway? Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And how's it going?
We felt it was best to put the office close to our Epic Center, which is where our city hall is located. We're in the process of building a 100,000 square feet city center, as well as renovating one of the most popular parks in this community. We felt that the center that we were going to use as a program office should be walkable to our residents. In addition to that, we're also talking with MARTA about providing critical transportation services for those within the program, as well as through partnerships with our local Chamber of Commerce.
All right, City Park Manager Ricky Clark Jr., thanks so much for joining us. And I love the look behind the desk. I'm going to have to get one of those myself, man. You look good.
Thank you.
Thanks for all that you're doing out there. All right.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right. The city of Atlanta is also working to close a homeless encampment under the downtown connector. This is the encampment that runs along Pryor Street. Now, Mayor Andre Dickens says that the camps are not safe for people living there, the surrounding communities, or the public. Activists are calling the city to stop these clear-outs. They're also calling to remove the leadership at some of Atlanta's leading homeless outreach organizations, including Partners for Home. It comes after the death of Cornelius Taylor. He was hit by a front loader while inside of a tent at an encampment on Wheat Street.
We got to stop the cycle. We can stop the cycle. It's just a matter of will.
The mayor's office says an outreach team is working to connect anyone who was displaced with the resources they would need. All right, don't go anywhere, folks. We're back with my final take right after the break. You're watching The Take on 11Alive Plus. All right, let's take a look at your forecast for today. And we're looking at temperatures getting up to 79 degrees. Today is likely the best day of the week if you don't like rain or, you don't want it around. Because it's coming back to us, folks. By Wednesday, we're looking at a 30% chance for some scattered showers to be around the day. They'll be around the area. During the day, it'll be off and on. 70 will be the high temperature, so we take a dip in temperatures, and then we go right back up to 79 degrees by Thursday with a few thunderstorms around. I think that'll be late afternoon going into the evening. 78 degrees on Friday, and unfortunately, the rain and wet weather will continue as we head into the upcoming weekend. You're looking at a 30 to 40% chance for the rain with temperatures in the low 70s. All right, before we go, here's my final take. A world-famous Met Gala took place in New York City last night, and it's an annual fundraiser to benefit the Metropolitan Museum of Art's Costumes Institute. If you're familiar with the event, it's considered to be one of the biggest nights in fashion, but some of the looks are a little bit questionable, to say the least. For example, let's take a look at Atlanta's own, one of my faves, and now a rock and roll Hall of Famer, Andre 3000. That's right, that's a piano strapped to his back. A piano. How's he supposed to sit down with that? How about the ATL's Janelle Monáe, actress, singer? She literally has on a box. A box. She looks like one of those Russian nesting dolls, one of those stacking dolls. If you open her up, maybe a small version of her is going to come out. How did she make it up the stairs in that? But not all were head scratchers. Here's one of my faves of the night. Look at the boss, Miss Diana Ross, a fitting outfit for the Queen, just 81 years young. An icon, and she looked like an icon right there. By the way, the Met broke a record in their ticket sales and how much they raised this year, $31 million. That's up from last year's $26 million. No one really knows what happens at these galas except the participants, of course, they're shrouded in secrecy, and you must have an invite to get in. All right, judging based on those outfits, it's probably just one big costume party. How about that? That's all we got for you today, folks. Try to make it a great day and encourage somebody today.